kind of weird. I'm in the middle of filling this hole back up and finishing my landscaping, and I hear the story about DK Metcalf trying out for the Olympics in the 100-meter sprint, and I hear about it kind of just as it's happening, so I didn't see it live. But then I read about it, and everybody's complimenting the guy. He finished. It was really weird. They're complimenting him on his form and everything, but he finished last, or tied for last. And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. If his form's that great, you know, why did he finish last or tied for last? So I watched I watched it on YouTube on the NBC channel. They had the whole night. They had a nice little 8-minute presentation. It was really nice because they showed all the different angles. So I watch it and I know something's off. Something's wrong. Not with Metcalf. There's something wrong with the transferring of his torque to the track surface. It's not efficient. I could just tell. It's just a weird quirk I've done this before. I never get credit. I actually sent intel once in. I watched the Sandra Bland dash cam video, and I noticed something that I don't think anybody else noticed. And I sent it in to the law firm, and 9 days later they had a settlement for the full amount. Now I never got credited because I naively thought if you do a good deed you get credited, and that's not the world we actually live in, unfortunately. But I still, and even though at that time I was taking care of my mom and I wasn't being paid, and we were running up a huge debt, and I had all kinds of stress, it was still satisfying to do it. Just to kind of come up with something. And I believe what I came up with was the difference maker, and the media's never reported on it. And I ain't going to say it now. But anyway, moving forward, I'm watching DK Metcalf run, and something just seems wrong. So I play it back at slow motion, which is a really nice feature YouTube has, which most of the other video wannabes that are coming up, they're like so far behind YouTube on the options they offer that it's like you're just not going to replace the. This is the thing. I don't mean to digress too much, but like everybody's pissed at big tech. They're over censoring, and there is a bias. There's absolutely a bias in what they're doing. You just can't replace them overnight. And anybody who rushes forward and thinks that they can is being silly, because when you have a video and you can only watch it in real time, you can't back it up real easily. You got to like scroll it carefully. And the longer the video is, the harder it is to do. You can't slow it down. You can't speed it up. Very inefficient. So you can't learn. There's things you can learn from a video depending on what speed you watch it at, and depending why you're watching it at that speed. So I watched this at 25%, and it's right there. Within the first couple of steps, I see what's going on. His foot transfer to the actual floor of the track, the actual track, is taking too long. It's taking like twice as long as all the other runners. And of course, the first thing most people say, well, of course, he's not an athlete. He's not a track star. He doesn't. That's not his race. He just ran it, you know, on the track. But there's something else going on. It's not about his weight. It's not about because he's he did it for the first time, or he hasn't run in a long time. It's not it. His form was really pretty. As a matter of fact, I did notice it looked like a couple of times he veered left and right, which actually ties in, I think, to my criticism. My little birdie friend is here. Okay. I'm going to walk away, see if my bird wants to. Where's his nest? Okay. There's a bird up there. I got a nest above the camera. You want to go? Okay, well, I'm going to finish my story. He or she doesn't have a bird, a worm in his beak, so. Hello. Okay. So what I noticed was the transfer of the time that DK Metcalf's foot was on the asphalt was twice as long as everybody else. Much more flex and much more time before the foot came up. So the fact that he even ran at 10.37 is amazing. So I'm literally thinking, so I went back and I counted how many steps he took. He took 45 steps. And I'm saying to myself, if he had the perfectly made shoe, track shoe, and the perfectly sized cleats, he probably can take 0.01 seconds off on every landing that he does, landing and lift off of every step. That would be 0.45 of a second. You subtract 0.45 from 10.37, you're talking a 9.92 I think he's capable of. Now let's say you can't perfect the shoe, but you can improve it. Okay, let's cut that time in half. Let's say on every step he saves 0.005 seconds. That would be 1/200th of a second on every landing. That still would have given him around a 10 point, from his 10.37, it would have given him about a 10.125, which I think would have tied him for the win. So either way, he's like at the front, not last. So anyway, I just think it's important that somebody tell him, somebody who works for him, his agent, maybe a shoe company, or maybe you're a college with a kinesiology program where you study ballistics of the body and study that foot landing. I mean, the footage is great. Just take the footage, feed it in, study how long his feet are landing, taking to land on the asphalt, on the surface, and compare it to the other runners. And here's the other thing. This is the part that's the craziest of all. Because he's so much taller, heavier, and has more torque on every step, his cleats actually have to be smaller because he's going to automatically dig into the ground easier. The lighter runners need the bigger cleats and the lighter shoes. The bigger, heavier runners that are going to run on a track with cleats, they need stronger shoes and smaller cleats. I don't know if they thought this all through or not. I don't think they did, because when I see him get off to a really good start, and then all these runners who were right around him and he was even leading are slowly passing him, he's not tired. He's not getting an afterburn effect. He's not getting the afterburners. When you get up to speed, you still have the ability to have a late burst. It's based on the fact that you're already up to speed. So any more you do, you already got momentum going. I think the shoes were like this very tiny little break that nobody could notice, and they were preventing him from getting into another gear. So I'd love to see somebody out there. I mean, if I was in kinesiology, or if I was, if I offered it, if I was an instructor, and especially if I had any kind of software. I mean, there's so many people right now who can benefit from what I'm saying. If you write software, if you have software already written, if you do analytics for kinesiology, if you're a foot manufacturer, if you're the agent, all these people should be thinking about this right now. Why don't we see if we can design a shoe for a bigger, stronger, heavier guy, taller too? That makes a difference too. The height makes a difference. Although I'm not exactly sure how. If he feels short and really heavy, well, then he wouldn't run as fast, probably. So yeah, so basically, yeah, those are all variables. And he needs a custom-made, DK Metcalf needs a custom-made shoe. And they have to be careful when they custom make the shoe that they don't make it too perfect, because he is giving so much force out. You don't want a perfect shoe where there's no absorption at all, because then he could hurt himself. He could do something to his knees or his joints. Because I think that's what happened to Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle actually allegedly ran 3.3 seconds to first base. Or I think I've even heard 3.2 seconds to first, or is it 3.1? It's really, I think it might even be 3.1 seconds actually. Allegedly, Mickey Mantle in his early days was running 3.1 seconds to first, and he ended up with knee problems. So something about Mickey Mantle's lower musculature was so powerful that his joints couldn't take it. So there is the risk, if you make the perfect shoe, you know, you almost don't want to make it too perfect. You almost want to back it off a little bit so there's a little bit of play. Because when football players are on an actual football field, whether it's grass or even turf, there's still a little bit of play and absorption in the surface. So their foot gets that little bit of moment to grab. The difference is that surface applies to all the players, so it's neutralized. On the track field, the lighter runners just use lighter shoes, bigger cleats, and they have years to perfect the shoe. I'm just suggesting if somebody can figure out a shoe, I'd probably make a couple versions with different tolerances and just see which one feels the best and which feels natural to him. And I think you could be looking at a guy who can run DK Metcalf, who I think could actually right now could run 10.1 between a 9.92 and a 10.145 if he had the right kind of shoes that were made custom for him, track shoes. So anyway, that's my little spiel, and I hope somebody out there, thinks about this, because there's still Olympic qualifying trials to come. If you come up with the shoe, you make a big name for yourself. Plus, it would be cool, right? I mean, he kind of, he's faster than he's being credited. He's actually faster than it looks, and that to me is sad. That we're all walking away thinking DK Metcalf tied for last, when actually he might have actually won the race if he'd had the right shoes.